Okay, Kyle, go ahead and say again what you said.
Okay, so this is for the people in the chat. If you guys are taking the exam, please let me know. And just because the people who are like running this program want to estimate, even if you're not 100% sure, just let me know if you are thinking about it. And if you're watching a video replay, just you can email me at shannonkyle.deleone@gmail.com, or um, you can email Nazir as well. But
Right here, yeah, my email address and Kyle's email address is right here when you log in, right?
yeah,
So good. Yeah. By the way, this Python exam, that certification exam, if you studied all the modules and hopefully you've done all the homework assignments and have watched these recordings or have attended these sessions, you'll ace it. You need 70% to pass. Most students do pretty well on it. So I hope you're not scared or anything. I believe in you guys that you're going to pass it. So like I said, next week or well, on the 11th, we'll take our summary course test. So kind of gives you a good idea to review everything. And the idea is that the questions that you don't understand on that certification test, you will go and study some more. I will also post some more study tools, like a little guided document that kind of walks you through that process of actually, studying for the test. And I would also post some access to some quizzes online that you could take, just for fun and see how well you do on it. Okay, so I just want to let you know that I don't want you to stress over that exam. It's not going to be, hopefully it's not going to be very tough. And I'm sure you're all passing. Okay, good, good. All right, so I'm gonna, so any other questions, general questions about anything before I start? No? By the way, again, if anything comes up, just email me or Kyle. We'll get back to you. Here's a thing. I hope you guys remember this. Does anyone remember what that statement does? LST equals bracket bracket. While I do this, does anyone know what LST equal bracket bracket do? Come on, someone tell me. No, no one.
Creates an empty list.
Yeah, it just creates an empty list. Yeah. And remember, a list is just a variable that can hold any number of values. That's all. So then if I say list, of course, that's just the name I picked. If I say list.append x, like that, and then I'll go out, and I'll go here, I say print lst. What do you think the output of this thing is going to be before I run it? Does anyone have an answer? No? Is anyone writing in chat, by the way, the answers? Remember, append just keeps adding, statements. So this loop goes from 2 up to 10. Of course, it doesn't include 10, but it goes with steps of 2. So any ideas?
Will it say 2, 4, 6, 8?
Exactly, right? Because it just keeps adding it, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. That's all it does, and that's what you get. 2, 4, 6, 8. And again, of course, with these things, it's best if you try it out. So that's one example. Now, remember, with lists, we can also insert elements. So if I say list 2 equals bracket bracket, I guess I could have used the old one, but I just want to do this. And I say, again, I'm just going to do a 4x. As a matter of fact, I'll just use the same range function, 2, 10 with 2. So remember, with range, you don't hit the last value. So it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8. It won't be 10. If you did want 10 in there, then just change this to 11 or 12, something bigger than 10. And this one, I'm going to do lst2.insert. Now, insert takes 2 parameters. The first parameter is where do you want to insert this thing? So I say just put it at position 0, which remember position 0 is that first element. And now I'm going to do this. I'm going to print LST2. So any ideas how that works? What do I get now? Do I still get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? Or do I get something else? Now, here's a hint. So the very first time insert is going to go to the position 0 and put the value of x, which is 2. So we'll put 2 in position 0. Then it goes back, it goes to the next iteration of the loop. It'll make x equal to 4. What will it put the 4? Will it put it before the 2 or after the 2? What do you guys think?
Before the 2.
Before the 2, because insert just says, I'm just going to open up a space right before it so I could put it in, insert it. So do you see now what you're going to get? Any ideas when I run it?
8642.
Yeah, it's just going to do it in reverse, right? It'll just say 8642. So that might be a good test questions, right? It's like, hey, what does this do to the list? Nothing. It just prints it backwards or inserts the data backwards. So insert is kind of nice in the sense that you actually can tell it where to position that. Again, these should be hopefully a review, right? Because we did lists before. Um, Now, one other thing I'm going to do, let's see. The other thing I want to talk about is the concept of global variables. Or as a matter of fact, before that, I want to talk about the scope of variables with functions. Because remember last week we talked about functions. With Python, essentially the scope of a variable is where Python has access to it. So if you define something, then everything after that has access to it. So the scope essentially says, can I see this thing? That's really the meaning of it. So here's a quick example. So I say def, let me see, score test, and so I'm just going to do this. I'm going to say x is equal to 1, 2, 3, and so I create a function called score test. I create a variable called x and made it equal to 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to call it now scope test like that. So it's going to go over there, call the function, and I'm just going to print the value of x. So while you guys are thinking about that, I'm going to comment these 2 lines that way because we already saw what they look like.
Question.
Yep.
Did you mean to write scope test or do you mean to write score test?
This is what I meant. Should do that. Yeah. Otherwise, by the way, it would have crashed, right? Because it would have said, you didn't define it. Yep. This is what I meant. Just call the score test, and then print it. So what do you think it's going to print? If I run this thing, will it print 123? Or will it crash? What do you think? Any ideas? Going once, twice, crash, or give me 1, 2, 3. Give me a guess. So remember, the scope is the visibility, right? It's like, do I have access to that kind of deal? So where is x equal to 123 defined? Right inside this function, right? Does that mean it's only good inside that function? I would think so, right? So yeah, when you run this thing, it's going to crash because it's going to say, well, what is x? Because you didn't define it. So if I ran it this way, notice now it's going to say, hey, x is not defined, right? Because it was out of scope. Now, by the way, if I say x is equal to 900, right? So it says x is 900, then it's going to call this thing, it's going to make it equal to 123 right there. And then it's going to come back. Do you think it's going to crash again, or will it print a value? What do you guys think? Will it give me 123? Will it give me 900? Will it crash?
I think it'll give you 123.
Now, remember, again, 120, x equals 123 is defined only inside the function. So it's really, really good inside the function. So you still want to stick with x equal to 123? No?
Okay, then
Yeah,
900.
because, yeah, then is, I think your next guess would be 900, right? So as a matter of fact, it should be 900, right? Because what you're telling Python is that, hey, x is 900. Go over there, do whatever you want to do to this local x. This is just a local variable inside this function. But when you come out, that hasn't changed yet. So that's another thing about, scope of variables. Uh, I want to give you one more, and for this, instead of doing this, I'm just going to go to my cheat sheet. Let me just comment that, not that it matters. So the next thing I want to do is if I want to go to here, because I've got some of these things already written out, so so that way I don't have to go here, paste it, and then do Alt 4. Let's go through this example. Again, by the way, some of these examples come right from out of your module, so you can always go back and read about that. So what do you think is going to happen here? So remember, this is just a function sitting by itself. If I don't call it, nothing is going to happen. So I say var is equal to 1, and then I call my function, and then so I'll go do this, and then I print var. So what's the first thing that is going to print? Will it print this as its first statement? It says, do I know that? It would, right? Because it's going to call that function. And it says, do I know this variable? Well, var is, we said it was 1, right? So that means it's accessible to that, or we know it. So there should be 1. And then when it comes out, var is still 1. So if you ran it that way, you're going to see that, you're going to get a 1 and a 1 just because of the scope of that variable. So that's one example. Now the question is, what happens if I go in here and let me see how different this is. I'm going to go here. I'm just going to say var is equal to 2, and that's all. I'm just going to do that. What happens now? What do we get? Does the very first statement, does this say, do I know the variable comma 2, or does it say 1? It should say 2 because we changed it, right? But this var is just local to that function. So when it comes out, what is this var? Is it 2 or is it 1 again? Does anyone see? I'm not going too fast, am I? You guys are okay with this? So yeah, so I expect questions. So I expect this to say, do I know that variable as 2, and then print 1 again. So if I run my module again, so there's 2 and there's 1. All right, good. So that's really how these functions work. Now there's one other caveat with these functions is the use of the keyword global. Now, as you might expect, global means global, right? That means accessible to everywhere. Now, global variables should really not be used in programs because if we have several functions with global variables and some function changes a value, we don't know which one of these functions changed it because that variable is global to everything. So now with this example, what we're saying is that var is equal to 1, right? Just, go ahead and, think about this. What do you think is going to print? Will it print 2 and 2, or will it print 2 and 1? Before I explain this. Alma, you're muted. So what will it print? You can sign. I can see you actually. So any ideas, guys? Global var means that this variable is no longer local. It's just global. So what do you think? What's the answer? 2 and 2 or 2 and 1? If I run this. You guys with me?
2 and 2?
2 and 2, right? And that's what I expect, because remember, the only reason is 2 and 2, because by just adding that keyword global, I made this this var equal to 2 is no longer a local variable inside that function. We have created this global one. So they have these what they call side effects, because if you have different functions changing different things, it'll be very confusing. So so that's what I wanted to tell you about, you know, how global variables or function scope or variable scope works. All right, so I'm gonna actually delete this, because actually I'm gonna delete all of these. Doesn't matter really. Oh, come on. I'm gonna control these. Okay. Now the next thing, the next example I want to show you is that is when you pass variables to functions, uh, you know, do things change as far as you know, these parameters of these functions? So this is a really simple function, right? It takes how many parameters does this function take, by the way? My function, how many parameters does it take?
One.
Just one, right? There's, if there was more than one, it will be comma separated. And again, if you guys are going to take a test, or if you know, you're trying to look at the output of these things and to see how they work, naturally, I don't really care about this first. I'm just going to look at my main function, you know, my main program that actually calls that function. So I create a variable called n, and I made it equal to 1. And then I call my function with 1. So n is now 1. So the very first thing it prints is going to be I got n. And what is the value of n? It's 1, right? So it's going to say I got 1. What does this statement do? N plus equal to 1. What does it do? What's the value of n now? Value of n is 2. So it'll say I have 2. So it says I got 1, I have 2, right? That's what this prints. Then it gets out of the function. And of course, it follows with the rest of the program. So will it, for this print n, will it print 1 or 2? Because I changed it. What do you guys think? This last value, would it be 1 or 2?
One.
1, because, yeah, you will be right. 1, because when I change the value of a variable inside a function, its value is not going to come out changed outside of the function. So yeah, this will be 1, this will be 2, but then this will still be 1. So if I change the value of a variable, notice I inside the function, n was 2. Outside of the function, n is still 1. So that's something to remember as far as you know, your function parameters. So the reason for that is that you know, Python creates this local variable called n. It does whatever it wants to do with it inside that function. When it gets out, it destroys it. So that value is no longer available. So that's why, you know, it will revert back to 1. Okay. So now with lists, this becomes a little bit different, because if you pass or manipulate lists as your function parameters, then those changes will actually um, um, uh, take place. So, but it's a real, it's a real, you know, tricky in the sense that it really depends on what you do to the list. So same exact idea, except that I'm just gonna pass to my function um, a list, okay? And remember, the only reason this is a list is because when I call it with a list. Again, so to begin with, I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to look at, let me move this over here. Um, so what's going to happen here? Uh, my list 2 becomes 2 and 3, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's got two elements, 2 and 3. And then I call my function with that list. So I go in here. So right now, my list 1, is that exactly the same as my list 2 when I'm here inside the function? Remember, that's the whole idea about parameters, right? I give it a value, so it'll run with that value. So the answer is yes, they're the same. So when it says my list one, when it's going to print, what's the very first thing that's going to print, do you think? What will it print? Remember, I'm passing it my list two, and so my list two and my list one are really the same. It's going to print what? What do you think? 1 colon followed by what? What's the value of my list one? Come on, guys. What's the value of list one?
2,
What is it?
3.
2, 3, right? No trick questions there. And then it says, well, how about my list two? What is that? 2, 3, right? Nothing has changed. Now here, I'm going to change my list one to 0 and 1, right? I just changed my list one, that's all. So right here, when it says, okay, print my list one, what will it print? Will it print 0 and 1? Yeah, because you told it to change it. And then what will it print for my list two? What is my list two? Oh, wait,
0, 1.
what is it?
Is it 0, 1?
Well, did I change it? Do you see anywhere there where I said my list two equals something?
Oh, no. So it's going to be 2, 3?
2 and
2,
3?
3?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2, 3, no changes, right? Then it exits the function, right? So it comes out. So the very last output I'm going to get would be 5, and it says my list 2. So what will it print? What's my list 2?
2, 3 again?
2, 3, I didn't make any changes, right? So this is what I
Yeah.
expect. Again, by the way, for all of these examples, it's best to just write out what you think is going to happen as far as output, and then run it, And if you're wrong, then you let me or Kyle know, within the discussion, email us or something and say, hey, can you explain to me because I don't understand this. So this is what I set out that says, well, 2, 3, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, right? So we were you were correct. That's how it works, right? Now, this is a very, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just another example where I'm going to do something, slightly different. And when you do that, I'm just going to write over this guy. Same exact process, except that right here, I'm actually deleting my list one, right? Now, uh, the list two and list one are really the same. Anytime you make a change to a list, do you also change the list that it was assigned to? And we talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago when we talked about lists. Do you guys remember that? When we said, list one is 1, 2, 3. List two is, 10, 8, 5, right? Totally different. When you make list two equals list one, you make a change. Now, does it matter that if you change list one, will it also change list two? And the answer is yes, because they're looking at the same exact memory location. So by just doing this, the output is going to be a little bit different. So let's go ahead, you've got time. So let's go ahead and work through this together. So for one, what do you think is going to print? What do you think? Same thing, right? So what do you think my list one is? Remember, it was the same as my list two because I called it right there. So that's not actually tricky, is it? So what is it? What do you think? 2, 3? Yep. Okay. How about now? How about this?
2, 3.
Yep. Good. And now I'm going to delete it, right? So I just deleted my list one sub 0, right? So what is my list one now? Remember, my list one sub 0, when I delete it, it's just going to get rid of that first element. So what's inside that my list one right now?
Just 3.
Just 3 because I just deleted the first element. Now here's the, I guess, $1,000,000 question. What's my list 2? Is it also 3? Remember, list 1, list 2, they're looking at the same thing. I just changed one. Did I change the other? Does my list 2 also become 3? Yes, no? Again,
No?
the hint that I just made maybe a couple of minutes ago is that they're looking at the same memory location. I delete one, do I delete the other? They're both looking at one value.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do, right? Because arrays are different than regular variables because now they're just looking at memory addresses. They're looking at the same memory location. So I would expect that to also be 3. All right, well then when I come out here, when I get out of this function right there, when I exit, finally, for step 5, what is the value of my list 2? Is it 2 comma 3 or is it 3? What do you think? I'm outside of that function. I went in, ran some operations, came out. What's the value of my list 2?
2 comma 3.
Well, remember, list 1, list 2, they were looking at the same thing. When I changed list 2, right? I came out here, well, list 2 has changed.
Okay.
So
Sorry, can you explain where you made list 1 equal to list 2? Where you made
just by calling it. Remember, when we call a function, it's just gonna grab this and go and put it in here. So remember the last example we had with n, right? How did I call that function? When I called it with, my function open parentheses 5, that value of n became 5. So you make the assignment by just calling it. That's the whole idea about calling functions. That make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So does this make sense though? Why my list 2 is also 3 now? The only reason it would be 3 because list 1 and list 2 were looking at the same thing because I made them equal. So again, but we should verify it, right? And if if you're not right, then you. So notice that's what we wrote: 2 3 2 3 and a whole bunch of 3s. Okay. That makes sense as far as list. So again, if you're looking with parameters of functions, that's where you make the assignment. That was, by the way, a really good question, is like, how does it know what that list 1 is? Well, it knows it because I called it with list 2, so they're exactly the same.
I
All right.
have a question.
Sure.
In the previous example, you said that list, instead of the delete portion of my list for the 0 element, you did a list 1 is equal to the numbers 1, 2. And the reason why list 2 stayed the same was because you completely renamed list 1. Is that
Yeah, in the first one that we did, right?
right?
Yeah,
And because you completely renamed it, there's not recalling the same list anymore.
Well, because I didn't affect any changes. I didn't like delete it or insert anything into it. Yeah.
If you had deleted or inserted, then it would affect both.
Then it would affect it. And that was the difference between the 2 examples I said, is that, look,
Right.
this is just it's kind of hidden and right there. So as a test question, that might come up and you're like, oh, I missed that, right? Because it's just because of that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. All right, let me do this. Now, here's the concept of what we call in programming and remember I told you I didn't want to talk about this last week because we're getting towards the end of the class, but hope this is only 30 minutes, so I think you guys are still fresh. So recursion essentially is nothing but a function calling itself. Okay, and remember, how do we call function? We refer to the name and we give them a value. Now, the purpose of this class isn't for you to write a function to solve a problem, I mean, a recursive function to solve a problem, but you need to know how it works, okay? So I just call, we call this function fun fact, right? And how many parameters? Just one parameter. Notice I just called it n. Of course, it could be anything you want. It says if n is less than or equal to 1, return 1. You guys are okay with that, right? If there's a decision, if this is true, we're going to return 1. But if this is not true, what are we returning? We're returning n, which is whatever that value is, times, and this is what we say, recursive, in the sense that inside the function, I'm actually calling the same function. So now it's going to go all the way back and repeat the process. So does the concept make sense? A function calling itself is called recursion. It's perfectly fine as long as you are careful. But as far as how you end it, because you keep calling something, right? It will become like a loop. So we have to end it, and this return statement right here will actually end it. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's say I call this function fun fact with 3. Let's go through this process and see what happens, right? So what's the very first thing that's going to happen? What's the very first thing that Python is going to do? It's going to take the 3 and it's going to put it in n, right? So inside here, what is the value of n? N is 3. And then it says, hey, is 3 less than or equal to 1? Is 3 less than or equal to 1? Yes or no? Is 3 smaller than 1? No. So it goes in here and it says, you know what? Return n, which is 3, multiplied by, I'm just going through what Python is doing, right? In other words, we're just tracing through this program. It says, well, that's gonna do this, right? Fun fact of, what's n minus 1?
2.
All right. So now that's all you're doing, right? You're saying, hey, go ahead and do this for me. And it says, okay, well, I'm going to do that. But look, you called me with fun fact of 2, right? So it's going to go all the way back again. And what is the value of n now? Well, the n is 2 now. Is 2 less than or equal to 1? Is 2 smaller than 1? It isn't, right? It's not. So it goes here. So what is it doing? Remember, it still remembers that old 3 from the last option, but it's right there. And it says return n. What's the value of n? 2 times fun fact of what?
1.
1, because it's n minus 2. So that's 1. And then it says, okay, well, I'm just going to follow through. I have 3 times 2 times fun fact of 1, right? So it's going to go back all the way here, and it says n is 1. Is n less than or equal to 1? It is. So it's going to return 1. So this thing becomes 1, right? So now there is no more calling of functions. It's done, right? The function has ended its job. Now it's just going to go and say, well, remember, I kept multiplying these things. So 3 times 2 is 6, times 1 is 6. We're done, right? So fun fact of 3 is going to become 6, right? So if I ran this program, it's just going to, do what I just did, what I just told you, and it made it 6. Now, does this work? Questions, by the way?
I was just wondering if we could use this for the homework tonight, since we have to do a factorial.
Did I ask you to use, I mean, you could use that, right?
I don't think you asked us to do anything that's specific. I think you just wanted us to use a factorial. I mean, create a function that will give us
Create
a
a function,
factorial.
right, yeah. So I gave you an answer, but there is another way to create a factorial without, using recursion, and it's just multiplication, right? Just instead of adding numbers, you just multiply. Yeah, so maybe I gave you the answer to your homework assignment. Okay, Now, what do you think happens when if I say fun fact of 5? Will it go do the same exact thing? It'll just say 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, right? Again, it ends when it 1. Now, if you know the value of n, if I say if n is you know greater than 1, let's say I just say if n is more than 1, return 1, right? What will it print, do you think? Just 1, right? Because 5 is more than 1, it's just going to return 1. So if you did that, obviously that's wrong because your ending condition is not true. Okay. Ooh, 640. I think what I want to do. Okay, one more thing, and that is again, this is also covered in your text in your material, in your Net Academy material. This is called a Fibonacci number, and Fibonacci numbers, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, not that it really matters, I guess. It's a pretty powerful concept in math. And it's pretty simple because it says the first number in Fibonacci numbers is 1. The second number is also 1. After that, the third number is always the addition of the previous 2. So that's why this 2 is 1 plus 1. Now, how do I get this 3? Simply add 2 and 1, right? How do I get this 21? Simply add the 2, 13, and 8. Well, there's a really nice, recursive function that does this for you. So you can print any Fibonacci number. So if I want to say print fib, and by that I mean let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I'm just going to do 8, right? So Fibonacci of 8 should be 21. And then, of course, this series, by the way, goes on forever. That's 21. But the question is, can we follow the same thing that we just did with this? In other words, what happens? What's the very first thing that happens when I call this with fib of 8? Well, 8 goes in here, right? And it's asking, is 8 less than 1? No. Is 8 less than 3? No. So what's the very first thing that's going to do? Fib of what? It's going to call a function, right? Fib of
7
7, yeah, n minus 1
plus
plus
fib of 6.
fib of 6, right? Now it says, okay, well, I'm not done, right? Because you just told me to go call myself again, right? So now it's just going to go in here and it says, oh, what's fib of 7, right? So it's going to go through the same thing. Is 7 less than 1? No. Is 7 less than 3? No. What is it calling now?
6 fib of 6 plus fib of 5.
6 plus fib of 5, right? Notice, when does this ever end? When does this ever end? Because remember, it's just going to keep calling itself, calling itself. When does it end?
N is less than 3.
Exactly. As soon as n becomes 2, it's just going to go back and it's just going to add all of those values together. And that's why, fib of 8 is going to give you this number. So what I'd like you to do is maybe just, just take a little pencil and just follow that. Maybe fib of 8 is too far because you have to add so many, right? Instead of fib of 8, try fib of 4, because that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should be 3, right? So fib of 4 should be 3, but see if you can, understand how that process actually works. But again, you don't have to write this code, but you have to know how it's done. Because you might get a test question that does something like that. On a test question, they probably won't have you do, 10 iteration of this thing. So that's what I wanted to tell you about functions. So we're done with lists, we're done with functions. And during the next 15 minutes, what I want to do is go to our course, and you guys see the course. I'm going to go all the way to module 3 test right there. And by the way, we're going to take it together, but I definitely want you guys to take it again, take it yourself, maybe write it on a piece of paper, and kind of, some of these you have to kind of trace, or Because if you want to do it in your head, it may just be a little bit tough. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try this test. Code of honor, I have that. Okay, so notice your passing score is 70%. Okay, so if you get a 71 on this exam, you should be happy because you know, a 71 and a 91 is really the same as far as this exam is concerned, right? By the way, what do you call a doctor who graduated, became a doctor with a grade of C? Does anyone know? What do you call a doctor who graduated with a grade of C?
A
What do you call it?
doctor. A
What do you call it?
doctor.
A
They're a
doctor?
doctor too.
Yeah, they're still a doctor, right? So there. Okay, so first question. Again, we're gonna go through this together, and you guys are gonna help me out. Okay, so hopefully we'll get a you know, full points on this. So an operator able to check whether two values are equal is coded as which one of these? 1, 2, or 3? 3 or 2? 3, right? Only 2 equals, right? Remember,
Right, sorry, I missed that. It's number
that's okay. This equal just checks, right? I mean, assigns a value. This one checks, this one doesn't exist, and this is not equal. Good. All right, next. All right, now I've got a loop, right? We talked about loop back, what seems to be ancient ages. What does this do? I is 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 3? It is. So it'll make I equals to I plus 2, right? So I is now 2. So it'll print an asterisk. So by the way, you definitely want to read the question, right? It says how many stars will this thing produce? So when I was 0, right, to begin with, I became 2. It printed 1 asterisk. Then it goes back and it says is 2 less than or equal to 3? Well, it is. The value of I now will become what? 4. Will it print another asterisk? Will it print another star? Yeah. So, and then it goes back and now it's 4, 4 less than or equal to 3, gets out. And so what's the correct answer? 2, right? 2. By the way, guys, if you think I'm going too fast on this, which I hope I'm not, you can always watch the video and, you know, stop it, pause it, maybe, you know, look at it. I know I'm putting you guys on, you know, under a microscope, but you know, with this stuff, what you need to do is just keep working at it. All right, what do you think about that? Vals is 0, 1, 2. So I'll give you guys some time to hash it through. What do you think is going to happen? What do we get?
3.
You think the answer is going to be 3? So,
Right.
so let's look at this. So vowels is 0, 1, 2, right? And then we insert a 1, right? So what's the new value of this array?
1, 0, 1, 2.
It would be 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, right? And then I deleted the second element. So it would be 1, 1, 2, right? Right? So 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 2 is 4. Did you guys come up with 4? Right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Good. So a lot of times, you know, insert is the one that usually gets people. Now here it says, which of the following sentences are true? Notice it says select 2 answers, right? Because, you know, there's more than one answer. Now, again, the way you want to do this is work it out. Make sure you understand. Remember the negative index values? It just means it starts from the end, right? So what's the correct answer to that? So what is the value of vowels? It says nums minus 1, right? This is minus 1, and then this is minus 2, right? So what do you think the value of vowels is going to be after this step? I'll just write it on a piece of paper. You guys write it on a piece of paper. What do you think the value of vowels is? Remember, I'm going to start at n. This is -1, this is -2, this is -3. I'm going to go from -1, right, to -2. In other words, it's trying to go this way. And that's usually not good. We always, for the slicing of an index, we'll always go right to left. So any guesses? What is the value of vowels? What do you guys think? You
Is
can't
it
go-
is
It's
it
gonna,
32?
it's gonna be nothing. It's gonna be blank because there's, I can't do that. So this becomes negative. So will it say nums and vowels are two different lists? Is that true? Are these two different lists? Is that true? They're
Yeah.
totally different. I click that. Do they have the same length? No,
No.
because I just, I made this one blank. Vowels is longer than nums, or is it the nums are longer than vowels?
Nums is longer.
Yeah, and again, that's our thing, and we're hoping for 100, right? By the way, with these exams, if you don't get 100, then you get to go back and redo it again. And what they do is they just give you a different alteration of the questions, so that you're not like memorizing things, but it will be the same question. So that's how you could kind of learn. Okay, how about this snippet? Again, choose two statements. So nums is 1, 2, 3. That's perfectly fine. Vowels equals to nums. Now, vowels equal to nums, that makes them the same thing, right? They refer to the same list, right? So as soon as I see this, I definitely will pick this guy, right? Because they are, remember, when you make them equal to each other, then you make them the same list. And then it says delete vowels 1, 2. Well, where is 1? This is 0. 1 is this, 2 is going to be, remember, it doesn't include the last one. So I'm just going to delete that. So what's the value of vowels now, do you think?
1, 3.
Okay, notice I'm going to delete at 1, right? Remember, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. I'm going to delete from 1 to 2, but remember, it doesn't actually include the 2, so it's just going to delete that. So yes, it would be 1 and 3. That's what you said, right?
Yep.
Okay, so which one of these is right then? Because we have to do 2 of them. Are they the same length?
Yes, because they have the same name.
Because they have the same name, right? Because when you deleted one, you deleted the other. Good. Again, these are the two tricky questions, just because of the fact that when you assign values to arrays, you make them the same. All right. Now remember this from last time when we talked about this. This is Python's way of swapping values. So when it says vals 0, vals 2 equals vals 2, vals 0, it's just swapping the this element with this element. So the new list is going to look like what? What would the new list equal to?
2, 1, 0.
2, 1, 0, right? So I had 0, 1, 2, it makes it 2, 1, 0. So which one of these is correct?
Reverses the list.
It reverses the list. Again, the thing about this is, of course, they can give you the same question, but ask a different, have a different thing like, well, what is the value stored in val sub 5? Or what's the value stored in val sub 2, right? That sort of question. So if you understand the process, then you can answer any questions about those. All right, this is something that we talked about back in the day. Again, for something like this, I tend to just write it, because they just want to know what is the value of this expression. So y less than z, is it true or false? Y less than z, true or false?
True.
Y is 0, less than z, that's true. Then I have and z greater than y, z greater than y,
True.
true. Then they have an or, right? It says y greater than z.
False.
And then finally z less than y. So I put and z less than y, z less than y?
False.
False. Okay, now remember what I have is true and true or false and false, right? Now, because I don't have any parentheses, it's going to process all the ands before the ors. So what I see from going from left to right, I have a true and true, which is true. I have an or, and then there's a false and false, which is going to be false. And then I do the true or false, which is true. Is that what you guys came up with? True?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, this could be anything else as long as you understand that logic. Again, in absence of parentheses, remember ands have a higher precedence than ors. And remember that true and true is true, true and false is false, right? So if you doubt this, you can go back to your logic table. Remember, continue essentially says, don't do anything after this. You know, if you have 100 statements after this statement, don't do it. Just go back to the first iteration of that loop. So what do you think this thing, and then do you guys remember the mod operation? It just gives you the remainder of division. So what do you think? Someone tell me how many hashes am I going to print? How many hashes? If you're doing this in your head, it might be a little bit harder, but what do you think?
Can you remind us what continue does?
Oh, yeah, sure. So let's go through it together. Var is 0, right? Is 0 less than 6?
Yes.
What happens to var? Var is now 1.
One.
What's 1 mod 2? Remainder of just 1, right? Is it equal to it? So it's false. So it goes in and it prints 1 hashtag, right? Then it goes back, and then remember the value of r is now 1, right? Is 1 less than 6? It is. It makes it equal to 2. Is 2 mod 2 equal to 0? It
Yes.
is. So it says continue, meaning that does it print this hash?
No.
It's just gonna, so that's what continue does. It says, don't do this. So then it comes out here, right? It becomes 3. 3 mod 2 is gonna be 1, so it won't do the continue, it will do the hash, so that'll be another hashtag. And then it's gonna be 4, but when it's 4, 4 mod 2 is 0, right? It continues. So do you see how it's gonna do 3 hashtags, right? So continue, you wanna remember that? Continue just says, skip everything else. Does that make sense? Now, then the opposite of continue, by the way, is break, right? Break just says get out. So break is a lot easier to understand because it tells you what to do. Now, remember for loops, while loops, they all have this weird else clause. And else means that, you know, even if you get out of this loop, I'm still gonna print that. So how many hashtags is this going to give you? What's the value of I to begin with?
0.
0. Remember, it starts with 0 and it goes up to 1, but it doesn't really include 1. So when I is 0, that's okay. So it's going to print a hash. And then it's going to go back to the beginning of the loop. It's not going to go to the else. It's not going to go back. And what is the value of I now?
1.
1, because it goes up by 1. And will it do this or will it exit the loop?
It'll go to else.
It will go to the else and it will print another hashtag. So how many hashtags is it gonna, hashes is it gonna display? Correct
2.
answer is 2, right? Does the else, well, does the for loop make sense, guys? Right?
Yeah.
Range goes from 0 up to the last value. I didn't give it an increment, so the increment will be 1. Good. I sure hope we get 20. By the way, we might go over a little bit because I do want to finish this. I think we'll finish it in about 5 minutes. I'm explaining a lot of stuff, but you guys go through this together. What do you think? Give me an answer. What do you think is going to happen? Question is, what is the output?
I think it'll be blank because slices are supposed to go from left to right, right?
Well, slices don't have to go from left to right. It's just that they're allowable if you're going from left to right. So the question, your question is, well, what is the -3? Here's -1, here's -2, here's -3, right? It's going to start from there, right? And it's going to go up to -2. Well, where's -2? So that one is good, right? Because you're going to the right. But does it include -2? It doesn't. So what will it print?
2.
So just 2.
Does that make sense, guys? Negative slices always are confusing because you're going from the end as opposed to the beginning. And they, I guess, intentionally trick you on doing this, because if this was 0, if this was 0:2, right? Just positive numbers, what will the output be? 0:2.
It would be 1 and 2.
1 and 2, right? It won't include this guy. Yeah. All right, so we got that right. Next, this one. Now, this is a two-dimensional array. Remember, a two-dimensional array looks and feels just like a table. The way this works is that this is like your outer loop. This is your inner loop. So all it's saying is saying, I want the first value to be 3 minus I. What's the value of I to begin with?
0?
Yep, because the range is 3. So the first value is going to be 3 minus 0, which is 3, right? What's the next value? Well, I becomes 1, right? 3 minus 1 is 2, right? So it'll be 3, 2. And then when I becomes 2, 3 minus 2 becomes 1. Do you all have 3, 2, 1 going across? Well, that's just that one row. But look, it says, hey, repeat that essentially 3 times, right? Because J will go 0, 1, and 2. So what's the next row of data? Will it still be 3, 2, 1?
Yes.
You guys, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, and then it says, well, I'm going to do one more round, and that's 3, 2, 1. So do you have, if you're writing this on a piece of paper, do you have a table of 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1? You guys all, do you have that? Yes, on a piece of paper? Okay, then it says, okay, S is 0. Again, I is going to go from 0 to 3, and it's just going to add up T sub II. So II is going to be 0, 0, right? Now, 0, 0 is that first element of that array. So what do you guys have in that first element?
3?
0, 3. Next time, it's going to be 1, 1. Oh, well, I mean 0. Yeah, 1, 1. What do you have in 1, 1? 0, 0. Let me just draw this for you. That might make a little bit more sense. So this is 3, 2, 1, right? 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Remember, this is index 0, 1, 2. This is index 0, 1, 2. So II would be this guy, right? Does that make sense? 0, 0. 1, 1 would be this guy. Oops. And then 2, 2 will be this. Essentially, all I'm doing is I'm counting the total of the diagonal, right? What's in there. So what's the correct value? 6, right? 1 plus 2 plus 3. Again, for something like this, you should really type that out and see it in action. You know, print the value of t so you could see that table there. All right, next. So question? No question? Okay, how does this work? It says how many elements, right? It just says, you know, just tell me how many there are. So the range starts at -1. The next one is going to be 0. The next one is going to be 1. It won't be 2, right? So how many elements is it going to give us?
3?
3, right? -1, 0, and 1, right? Because that's just the range. It's just that what it's doing is putting that data inside the list because of the brackets. So again, another question could be, hey, what do I get if I print my list? Well, it's going to be -1, 0, and 1, right? All right, now again, we've got the insert. This might be a little bit tricky, but let's see, we go through it together. So what do you think? My list is 1, 2, 3. That for loop starts at what? What's the first value of V of the for loop? V starts at what value?
1?
No, it always starts at 0. Well, what does it go up to? It goes up to the length of my list, right? What's the length of my list?
3.
3. So the values of V, we know it's going to go 0, 1, and 2, right? It never hits 3, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens the very first time we're going to insert at position 1, right? At position 1, we're going to insert my list sub 0. So what's at position 1? What value do you have at position 1?
2.
What is it? My
2.
list of 1, which is 2, did you say? My list, well, my list of 0, right? V is 0. What's my list of 0?
1.
1. So the very first value I put in there is 1, right? Then it goes back again, right? The value of V is now 1, right? And it's going to insert at location 1 the value of my list sub V, which is now my list of 1. Now remember, when it did that, it actually pushed this. Remember this one, maybe I'll draw this a little bit better. Remember, the original was 1, 2, 3. Again, they love to do these. The original was 1, oops, 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, right? That new 1, where did it go? It went at position 1, right? This is position 0, 1, and 2. So it's just going to start, spot right there and put that 1 in there because, sub-0 was a 1. So the new list is going to be 1, 1, 2, 3. Then it's going to go back and put another 1 in there. So now it's going to be 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. So again, if you, by just doing this, it's always going to insert right there at that position 1. So the correct answer would be, I think is B. Does it have, we have 4 of them actually, because we had the original 1. So for this, again, you have to sketch it out. The most correct answer would be this guy, right? Because you know that it had a 1, 2, 3. It went to position 1 and it just added a 1. So it just expanded the list. So by process of elimination, I know it's not going to be any of these, right? I don't even have to go through the whole process. And that kind of usually saves you time. All right, same thing. I got my list 1 as 1, 2, 3, my list 2 as null. There's nothing in it. And then V is equal to, what's the first value of V when you see V in my list? What's the first value of V?
0.
Now remember, this is also tricky because we're not doing the range function anymore, are we? We're not saying range of something. So the first value of V, it says go in my list and pick that first value and give it to V. So what's the value of V?
1.
1, right? Because it's right there. That's right there, right? Then it says, hey, in my list 2, a brand new list, right? They're not the same. It says insert at location 0, comma, V. So is it going to insert the 1 there? Right?
Yes.
Yep. Then it's going to go back. What's the value of V? The second value is 2. It's going to put in at that location of 0. It's going to put in the value of 2. Will it go to the right of 1 or to the left of 1?
To the left.
Because we're inserting at that location, right? So you see the right answer should be what?
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, good. Again, I know some of you guys might be tired. I hope I haven't lost you guys, but again, the video is there. You can always watch it. Oh, we've got 5 more, so we'll go over a little bit. All right, you guys remember this and the single and operator or, and this was exclusive or, and that only works on bits, only as 1s and 0s, right? And so right now, A is 1, B is 0. What do you think the value of C is?
0.
Because 1 and 0 would be 0, right? It's just like true and false, right? It's going to be false. How about D? What's the value of D?
1.
1 or 0, so that would be 1. And what's the value of E? Now remember, exclusive or is one or the other, but not both. Yeah, it's one or the other, it's not both, right? They're not the same thing. So what's the value of that?
1.
Right? Okay, so now it says, give me the values of C plus D plus E. So what did you guys write? What did you have for C plus D plus E?
2.
2, right? It was 0 plus 1, which is 2. So that would be the best answer. Good. Again, if you don't remember this, just look at the Python material on when we did the bitwise and or and exclusive or. Questions about this? By the way, I'm hoping to get 100. So if we don't get 100, is Elmo's fault, because I'm kind of and Julia too. I think Julia has been participating. Any activities in the chat, by the way, Kyle? Did I put everyone to sleep?
No, a couple people left, I think.
Oh, they did. Oh, okay, that's fine. All right. What do you guys think about this? My list is 3. Again, this is the -1, right? Go to the end. This might actually be easy. So what's the value of my list? Oh, now it's kind of tricky, right? Because it says, give me my list sub my list -1. So
This
the
one's
first thing,
what?
yeah, what's
Yeah.
that?
The answer is what?
The answer is 1.
One.
You all
Yeah.
agree? Because my list sub -1 is going to be this guy, right? And then -2 would be -1, -2, 1. I agree. All right.
Wait, can you repeat that?
Oh, sure. This one, it says print my list, sub my list, right? So the first thing you need to do is say, what is this guy, right? What is this? What is my list sub -1?
-2.
Is because of this guy, right? So now I'll go back again, and the question is this: what is my list sub -2, right?
It's a
Well,
composite.
you say -1, -2. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
It's a composite, right? Because it's a function within a function.
yeah,
or-
all it's doing
kind
is
of,
saying is yeah, exactly. This is a composite, right? So at first it's kind of tricky because you might think that, oh, they just want my list sub -1, right? Then you think, ah, -2 is my answer. I got it, right? But they want my list. Again, if this guy wasn't here, if my list wasn't here, yeah, the answer would have been -2. Yep. Next. Ooh, we got 4 more. All right. No, I think we talked about this. This is the less than operator. That's a bitwise multiplier. All it does to, you don't really have to know about bits and bytes. All you have to remember that when you see this, what Python is going to do is going to take this value and multiplies it by 2 to the power of this number. That makes sense? It's not going to multiply it by 1. It's going to multiply it by 2 to the power of 1. So what is 2 to the power of 1?
2.
Is 2, right? So we know that's what's happening. So let's go through this and to see how many hashes this thing is going to print. So var is 1. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. It's going to print a hash, right? It's going to print 1. Then what is the value of var?
2.
Because it is 1 times 2, which is 2, right? Goes up, 2 less than 10. Yes, it prints another hash, right? Now what is the value of var? 2 times 2, which is 4, right? Then it goes back, it prints another hash. What's the next value of v? 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 is still less than 10. It'll give you another hash. And then what is the value of v?
16.
16. And then 16 less than 10 is false. It gets out. So how many hashes did it print?
4.
4. Or they could say, what is the value of var after the loop? Well, 16, right? So by doing that, you'll be answering like 2 questions, or next. Okay. Oh, this is break, right? No, remember the last one was continue, meaning that, skip everything and go back to the beginning of the loop. But break just says get out. So is this, so someone tell me, what is the answer? What's the correct answer to this? How many stars?
2 stars?
2 stars? Those of you who are with me, do you guys agree?
Oh, Alma says 1 star.
Or just 1 star? Okay, let's go through it. I is 0, 0 less than 5, that's fine. I becomes 1. 1 mod 2 equal to 0? No, right? It doesn't break. So it prints 1 star. Then it goes back, and then I is 1. So now I becomes 2. 2 mod 2 is equal to 0, right? So what happens? Gets out of the loop. How many stars did they have? Just 1 star, right? So that's the correct answer. Next, you've got this again. This is like a table, right? A 2-dimensional array. All it's saying is saying, I want that first row to be 0, 1, 2, 3. How many times? When I is 0, right? So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And when I is 0, the first row becomes 0, 1, 2, 3. Then what's the value of I again? Remember, this second one is always your outer loop. So what's the value of I again?
1,
1. And so what's the next row?
0, 1, 2, 3.
Same thing, right? Because it's just repeating this, right? And then it gets out. So how many rows of data do you have?
2.
Just 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Then it says, give me print my list sub 2. Remember that first element is your row number. Second element is your column number. So what is my list sub 2, comma 0?
0?
Uh-oh. Oh, I ran out of time. um, um,
We also got a question wrong because we didn't answer the last question.
uh-huh.
So we should have gotten 19 out of 20. So we
Okay,
got
good.
18
Yeah,
out of 20.
last, so if you remember, I guess, so that's a good thing you guys, I thought that I didn't want to, spend all that time, but I guess it did. Okay, yeah, what do you think, what do you think it should have done?
2, 0 would that have been the 1? Because it's the second row,
Yeah, this is what
0
it,
column. So
yeah,
it was
this is,
0.
okay, this is what it looks like, right? I'm just gonna write it on this, and I still remember the question, so it'd be 0, oops, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is row 0, right? This is row 1, and this is row 2, right? They wanted us to give them this guy right here.
Oh, and that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So for that, you get an error. And then the last one, I think, I don't remember what it was, but I think we would have aced it. But we did pretty well, right? 90 out of 100. We passed anyways, even running out of time. So next week, there's no homework for next week. I will go ahead and extend that homework assignment till next week anyway, so that way you guys have some more time. Again, if you want to learn Python, and if you want to pass this exam, read through those the Net Academy material and ask questions. Okay, if there's something that you don't understand, just put it in the discussion forum or email myself or Kyle. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, for the PCEP, are the questions going to be pretty much the same as the module tests?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Kyle, you've taken the test recently, right?
It was actually a while since I took the PCEP,
Ah,
but I do remember like there'll be like foundational questions, but then there's a lot of like trick questions, I guess. So
yeah.
for example, it'd be like it'll like call it like, oh, does this function, what does this function do? And then you would read the function like, oh, it does this, but then you'll realize like in the code they called like there's like a typo, or like they called a different function than they
Oh,
are talking about.
yeah,
But-
yeah, concepts will be the same, but they will make it tricky.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
but
as for the content itself, yeah, it's similar to the module.
yeah, no, yeah, there wouldn't be any. I suspect, again, the questions will always change, right, depending on when you take it and all that good stuff. But the concept that we just talked about, right? If you truly understood how that insert or append works, or how when you call a function, what is really going on, you'll be able to answer any type of question, right? So, and that's what I was trying to say, is that all of those questions, instead of saying, well, how many stars will it print? They could say, what's the output, right? What's the value at the second element? Well, if you don't understand, if you don't know that second, if you don't know what that list looks like, then you wouldn't know what the second element looked like, right? And the foundational questions would be big, from the beginning, chapter 1. And then have you guys been taking those quizzes. I think they have those self checks.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you take those are good because they kind of check your understanding. But yeah, there wouldn't be any, differences. There wouldn't be any new concept. It's just
Is there a reason why if you're going through NetCAD and you decide to take the quiz through them, it's different than the quiz if you click on the syllabi?
if you click on the
Because if you're in NetCAD and you go through the modules, they'll pop up, this is quiz 1, and you like take it. But if you go to the syllabi where the homework is posted or what the agenda is at, and you like click quiz 1, that quiz is different than the other quiz.
is it drastically different or is it just
The quiz 1 was drastically different. Quiz 2 was somewhat different. Quiz 3 was the same.
okay, yeah. So I don't know about the reasoning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just another exam, another practice, right? And I think there might be times where they might be, they might have the wrong answer. So if you take a quiz and you get 19 out of 20, I wouldn't like try to go back and say, well, which one did I get wrong? Because they don't tell you what you got wrong.
Yeah, and when we approach like the test date, I can give you guys like some of the stuff I used to study myself. I'm just building up like a list of links right now.
Perfect. And just I think Kyle, you can actually post. I don't know if you can post stuff there or not. If not, just email me and then I'll post it.
Okay.
Just email me the list. Yeah, there were a couple of quiz links to online quizzes that I'll also look into. And then between your list and my list, we'll have a comprehensive list of just taking more. I think the more exams you take, the faster you get and the better you get at it. So that's always a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, definitely let me know on that. All right. You guys okay for tonight?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Are you guys enjoying
Thank
this?
you.
Oh, good. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You guys have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, all.